actually a little after, and so it's our start time. So if everyone would please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our village of Cooperstown is really fortunate to have beautiful, beautiful parks and supported by the village. And we're also very fortunate to have a very active Friends of the Parks, which has been instrumental in many of our park improvements. And they have ideas for one of our most beloved and certainly our largest park, Ferry Spring. So I will let you take the floor first.
I think I know every single one of you, but I am Susie Knight, and I'm co-presenting tonight with Tom Hohenke. And we've been kind of living this for a couple of years now, so we might just be jumping in and finishing each other's sentences right now.
Yes.
Okay. I was also told, well, it's a beautiful night, and I know everyone wants to go home, but I was also told I talk really fast and I should slow down. So you guys can give me some clues as to how I'm doing. Okay, so welcome. So this is Project Ferry Spring, and I'm going to give you start off with a little background about who we are, Friends of the Parks, kind of go through the process, how we came up with this project, and then Tom's going to take it away and actually show you what the project is. Okay, so we are Friends of the Parks, and we've really worked together as a benevolent partner with the Cooperstown and the Village Parks Board. We do all sorts of things from rehab, protection, acquisition, development, and maintenance. And obviously, we raise money for the and get some endowments to help further these efforts. We have, as Friends of the Parks, we've been in existence for over 40 years. These are some of the stars who have helped steward this through the years. And it's pretty impressive to think 40 years of volunteers working to make our parks better. And we've all benefited from the work that these groups has done. And you can see where John O'Dell has mentioned, that's when we became officially a 501c3. That's sort of an important distinction where we can actually raise money on behalf of parks as a charitable organization. So we see sort of ourselves as the sandals on the ground. We're still all right. So where the Parks Board really has so much to do to deal with the daily workings of the parks. Friends of the Parks, we're actually in the parks using them and listening to people talk about them and seeing how they function and how we can make them better. So that's the sandals on the ground approach. We have our ears to the ground literally when we're using them. Always trying to think, what can we do to improve that? So since we incorporated this 2006, I think it's 2005, since we incorporated 2005 as a 501c3, these are some of the projects that you might recognize, and some of the volunteer efforts, which is a big part of our organization, but from water fountains to pavilions to railings, we kind of think about what do we need to make the parks better, even the chairs. And very spring fun. And the playground, that was a big one. We didn't have a playground for children under school age. Anyone recognize themselves? I'm sure there's some celebrities. So, in our last two big projects, the most recent one, replacing the fishing pier at 3 Mile Point to make it up to code, ADA accessible, and the pavilion at Badger Park, which is also ADA accessible, has a picnic table for usage. We really started thinking about our welcoming to everyone and how can we make them more welcoming to everyone. So I love this quote, plant spacious parks and loose their gates as wide as the morning to the whole people. So really in Friends of the Parks, we've been starting to look around with this lens a little bit more as we have our sandals on the ground. Starting to think, how can we make this park better for everyone? So tonight we're here to talk about Ferry Spring. I don't think any of you are strangers to Ferry Spring. And I know we'd all rather be there right now in this building. Really, it's a magical place. I can tell you, I've been going there since I was 12. I had the challenge and pleasure of being the caretaker there when I was 23. It just has a lot of, it holds a really special place for so many people, and it brings community together. Very soon, Tom made me change this from challenges to opportunities, so I'm gonna try really hard to use that lens of opportunities. So it's a complex space, it's really complex. As you can see in the middle photo here, it's really steep. That's the descent to the lake, that's the first descent to the lake, this was kind of last part of the second descent to the lake. So really difficult, if you are mobility challenged at all, whether you're frail, whether you're in a wheelchair or a walker, or whether you have a child with a stroller, it's just not accessible, from that perspective. Also, you can see the beach is very narrow, makes it challenging for balance. Sometimes when the water is high, you can barely fit chairs along there. So we've had friends and patrons for years begging us, do something, do something. I don't want to give up the lake. It really shouldn't just be for us when we're in the prime of our lives. We want to be able to extend that time at Ferry Spring. Other opportunities are to improve this roadway, which if you've driven down, you know, well, we'll see later, you see how you have to jog around, and it's kind of a two-way traffic chaos with cyclists and walkers, pedestrians, and not very logical arrival and exit. And of course, you see this. If you did have a mobility issue, it would be very challenging to use the bathroom there. In fact, almost impossible, you'll see. And another fun fact that Ellen, our telephone, and I had a discussion at CBS sometime this winter. We made a connection that the village wasn't aware necessarily, and that maybe a lot of people don't know that the caretaker cottage does not have a toilet. So these are our opportunities. Oh, and also this is our pavilion, which is really historical. It has had a lot of a rich past, but feels underutilized and slightly gloomy and unwelcoming. So we're looking for opportunities. How can we make this place better? And then I wanted to show you that this these feelings are not just shared with our group alone, but the Parks Boards did a survey in 2019, and look what it says: level the gravel steps down to the lakes, smooth path to the restrooms, redesign bathrooms to make more accessible, improve signage for those with disabilities, install ramp to pavilion to make it accessible. And then Jesse Ravage had written in, which he was our president, had written in our Friends of the Parks notes, improve ADA compliance, open up the pavilion for greater enjoyment. So there's been a lot of years of people wanting something to be done. So, project very soon. Bear with me. I want to show you how this started out as a little seedling. And it was just one tree, but it's really like, so how did this start? So during COVID, we received a grant for $5,000 from the town of Middlefield. It was part of their COVID relief funds. We thought that was a lot of money, and we were so excited. What are we gonna do with this $5,000? Let's start thinking big. What can we do in the park with $5,000? Well, it's kind of like if you give a mouse a cookie, then they're gonna want some milk to go with it. Kind of so it went along. So we started to brainstorm about how we could think big. And we sort of focused on the accessibility, safety, and the improvement of the pavilion. So we thought, well, let's start with the road. That seems easy enough. Let's just move the road, make it a straight shot. We talked to a local contractor. He said 10K, 10,000, move the road. That didn't seem too bad. We already have the 5,000. So then of course we want to work, be a good partner with our village trustees, who then asked us to go hire an engineer. Well, $5,000 is no longer a big pot of money to work with, but it was helpful to figure out what we really needed to do it right, and also to preserve that beautiful historic pavilion that we all care so much about. So we did hire the engineer, we got input from the Parks Board Chair, Village of Cooperstown, the caretaker, we gathered a lot of information. And then we got approval of our plans by the village trustees to continue with the project as partners. So we wouldn't be making the decisions necessarily by ourselves, but we would be collaborative in the process. And I think that's been a really good experience. I think it's gotten only better the more we work together. So then, once we started thinking about moving the road and maybe opening up the pavilion a little bit, we started thinking about the bathroom location. Initially, we thought about maybe putting it in the pavilion, and you'll see, when we realized that the caretaker bathroom also could be solved. At the same time, we realized that there might be a good solution for that as well. And then, so then there is the interesting news, serendipitous, that the parks grants that the village had received might possibly be redirected from Lakefront Park to Berry Springs, so that was a wonderful bit of news. And then here we are tonight at the public information meeting. So we've been wanting to share with you about this for so long, but we had to get through all these stages to finally share them with you. So, Project Berry Spring, Tom, when are you gonna jump in soon?
Keep going.
Okay.
Standing ovation.
Okay, so there's kind of three sections to this, if you think of it this way. So the first one, rerouting the existing lane. So the existing lane would be moved to be the straight shot. It would eliminate the congested area. You'd be able to see oncoming traffic, and it would create an actually separate pedestrian and biking lane. And that would, and both of them would lead towards the ADA area on the far side of the building, you'll see in a little bit. The second part would be an accessible deck and ramp off the lake side of the pavilion, if you can imagine. They would provide alternative space to enjoy the park regardless of the weather, regardless of your ability, and to maximize that view of the lake. And the sunset, which is really the only public place on the lake where you can view it, and we know that's a treasure. And also, of course, we want to preserve the integrity of the building. This is a WPA building. And then finally, the bathrooms. And we'll talk more about that. I think maybe the village will, but combining the access to the plumbing so that both the caretaker can enjoy a bathroom and the public can as well. And in the process, maybe reconfiguring the changing areas to accomplish that. So that's sort of the outline of the project. Anyone recognize that? I don't know when that got changed, but the pavilion was originally an open air pavilion. It was never enclosed. Until later, but originally it wasn't. So when we talk about changing it, it's already been changed. So think about that as we go forward. And fun. I don't know if anyone experienced familiar when it was like this. Okay, and so here's Berry Springs today. See where the road jogs around. You can see the steps up into the pavilion. Here's the side where the we. And one of the things about the pavilion when you're in it, it's this looks very festive. I would say this picture makes it look really, really nice, but we worked really hard that day. But if you're actually seated at one of the picnic tables, it's very difficult to see the view, which is the best part. So it is kind of underutilized. It's kind of gloomy.
Yeah.
When you're in there. I mean, it does get used for some things. And obviously in the back, there's where the lifeguards hang out when they're not on duty. And this is the potential view. This is the current view right now from that very window. Which is pretty special. I didn't get the sunset here. Sorry, you gotta wait for that. And I'm just gonna show you some of the other structures. This is the caretaker cottage. These are the two changing areas currently. the changing area, and then this is where the handicap or the ADA parking would be, and then with the ramp kind of leading that way. This is. Yeah, actually, there's two, I should show this, and you have to trip over the edge. It's very nice if you can get there, it works, but, I used to probably can't. Go back. I was too scared to go out at night.
Too much information.
He doesn't have lands anymore.
I hate my Okay, and then, so we'll, I think the village will be talking about this, but, imagine these maybe being reconfigured for different. Here's that beautiful access to it. We love rustic, and we want to keep it rustic. Okay, Tom, help me out.
Sure.
Yeah.
Flip
You
it aside.
want me to point here, or you want me to?
Actually, I'll point, wait, make a point.
Yeah, you can point.
The button in the center.
That one right there.
No, not it. Yeah.
Advance it. Okay, cool. This is an eye test.
Yeah, that's.
Not very clear, but I think this just does give you some sense of some of the work that we're planning on. If you take a look at the one on the diagram on the left, you can see the building that's, let's see. The building there, this is the entrance into the park. And you come along the building, you can walk right up here into the parking. This looks like a big major like driveway. It's overgrown path. That's not good.
It was, that's me that
It used to be, right, so right now it's not being used for anything. Here's the outbuilding there, that's the caretaker's cottage? Caretaker's cottage. So over here, then you see the work here, this is the road, the new roadway on this side of the building as opposed to the left, lakeside. And one of the things that was not clear yet, one of the things, and I will actually, we should also add that, you know, the work, this is a work in progress in terms of details about both the Ferry View with the pavilion and Ferry Lane with the roadway. So one of the issues with the roadway is that it could be either paved or stone. And so that's still to be determined, but what will happen is that as the lane comes down, this is going to be these two handicap parking spots that will be added. There will be, this right here is a retaining wall. And there's been a lot of discussion about that too. It's looking at my understanding at this point that that will actually not be a retaining wall, not just a grade down and with a culvert ditch to drain off. But so, which is gonna be a bigger expense, but I think less maintenance, so to be determined, but I think that's the direction right now. The other thing is, in terms of drainage, this is pretty steep hill here. But what Alex Herman's here, and he's doing the engineering on it, and multiple projects for the village, and one for us. This is a little, the drainage is gonna come down here and across underneath this handicap spot. And here's the output for that drain. So. This is a view from the top. This is, Susie mentioned the bathroom potential here. This is an original drawing that Alex did for us, because when we first talked about this, we talked about in the pavilion that we would actually have a bathroom here, but that's no longer to be the case. So just in terms of looking at the structure though, again, the new lane is going to be here. And one of the things to note on this picture, I'll show you more visually too, with some renderings that Alex did. You know, this from this point here, the beginning, you could enter here, right? This is this expanse right here is about 48 feet. And the way what this is showing is that we would have a accessible ramp here and then into the building, which would take up roughly 24 or half of the full expanse of that opening. The other thing about this opening is there, as Susie said, that used to be an open pavilion, open air pavilion. There are actually 4 different roughly 12-foot pieces here, and here. Panels that can actually be removed very readily. It's not like any major new construction, they're structurally sounded, you know, across the top. But what this shows basically is you have half of this ferry view deck would be roughly 12 feet by roughly 24 feet. And then the other half of the deck would be actually a ramp. I will mention at this point that there's discussion going on right now. One of the things that's not fully realized yet, we certainly would welcome input on this as well, is that rather than have this ramp that has to get proper rise for ADA regulations, of course, take out that, we were considering the possibility of having the ramp start over in this area, which would be where there's parking for one of those 2 parking spots. So you run the ramp straight from here up to here versus from here and wrap around and in. So I think we're,
I think a straight ramp is very long, so you don't have enough room to just run a straight shot with the ramp. So we're still looking at, if you wanna shift it, we can definitely gain some more deck space. But at the time, it was trying to stay within a certain idealized budget, and it seems like that's kind of moving a little bit, so it can expand. We just haven't figured out the exact size yet.
and again, I think the thinking is, the view is here. And right now, we're cutting the view of that nice 450-foot expanse in half, so that's why there's still thought into.
What about a ramp on the back side of it, through that door?
Oh, back.
But on the road side,
Here?
right, but there's still a door there.
Here?
Yeah.
Currently, with the plan, when you see it, the rendering, it has some, railing that would protect the building from cars. That was
And
recommended.
I think space too, I mean,
Yeah, I can't tell if the space is there or not.
yeah, I don't think so. How wide is the lane there?
12 feet.
12 feet, so I don't think we really have,
Okay.
sorry. I don't think we really have the space
Got it.
from here out to here to do a ramp and a road lane, so. Moving ahead, so here's the rendering from the lake, you're seeing from the lake now, so again, you can see. That we just talked about, this is the kids hanging out and then this is the ramp. Now, one of the things you'll notice on this, there's 2 doors here. This is another aspect of the project that is yet to be determined. Because we, again, thinking about the goal of having as much view of the lake, if there's some way to possibly even remove doors to have a summer, there's been discussion about that. And so right now, the way with this rendering, there's just these 2 roughly 4-foot doors to get in and out of up to the deck.
If you have a solution to this, we are open.
Yeah.
I will add one thing, the original pavilion kind of changed, so inside there's braces, if you will. So the original thought was like barn doors, which would have been amazing, but because of the braces, can't open it that way. So there is a solution, we just don't know what it is yet. We got time.
To be continued, and again, public information, public input is always obviously welcome, so. To a new project. So this is the view from the top, you can see, I don't think there's much to see here, again, this gives you some sense, actually, Alan, of the,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
there's not much more room than for a car there, so. It's the handicap, again, there's the possibility here, these are the 2 handicap parking spots, and the idea, again, we talked about before, is rather than have this take up 24 feet here. This out somewhere to here. But again, Alex will have to determine about ADA compliance with that, run that ramp. There's another view of it. Get a better sense of that. And also, this does give you a sense, it's the scale, so you get a sense of the size of that deck, the viewing deck. With a lot of it, again, I keep going back to this, but you can see a lot of it's taken up by a ramp. So. Another view, keep going, so this is.
All right, I guess, oh, I take it in, wow. What'd you say? Yes. Sure. It doesn't change our goal is not to change the character, it's just to make it more usable and to make it more welcoming.
You can see that the former lane gets turned into a pedestrian bike path. You know, the Village of Cooperstown is a complete streets community, right?
Yes.
So this is kind of in keeping with a lot of that kind of thought around allowing people to walk, roll anywhere more with more access. And by the way, this retaining railing here is there now, it's gonna stay there. FYI. So, yeah, this, Ellen had, or, you know, this is just describing that, you know, what the situation with the viewing platform being scrapped, that, you know, this is article from the paper that came out after the meeting.
You can see we were excited about it. Opportunity.
Well, clearly this is I see very serendipitous, like, you know, win-win situation with where you live. You know. We can all benefit from it. So in terms of, one of the questions I know that came up very early in talking about this, I know a couple of years ago, many people had, how are you gonna pay for this? This is gonna be an expensive project, you know? And it is, as we know. I mean,
Bigger than our past projects, we'll say, for sure,
Right.
definitely a
And
new
so-
experience.
Right, and so actually, we have set up preliminary goals, it says of $250,000. Now, that figure will encompass the actual work that's going on in the engineering. But in addition, that should also cover some funding that could go towards, first of all, overruns, which inevitably happen. And also potentially some kind of funding for maintenance. So, that's why that should be more than the scope of the project that the Friends of the Parks that we just described to you. Will go towards, and then in addition to that, we're gonna hear very soon now about what the village, how the village is gonna do the work.
Yeah, well, essentially, we anticipate comes from grants, or you haven't even explored that yet. You know, there's philanthropy and, you know, while having fundraising events and donations in memory of people, things like that, but, you know, state grants, other things.
So you bring up a really good point, actually, you're sitting right next to Mike Stein. You don't know Mike Stein, so you do. Mike Stein is graciously helping us with our thinking around fundraising. So we thought about all those things. Actually, Mike has told us about all those things. So, the good news too here, you know, we have raised $70,000. We haven't done a formal fundraising campaign yet, but we're about to launch it. So heads up on that, but we do have to date $70,000 dedicated to this project already, so good percentage already. The other thing to think about, we're talking about a 2-year giving campaign here too, that people will give over a couple of years probably. You know, the scope of this project being done, the earliest the lane could come in, what could go probably fall.
We're fall of 2026. What we feel really strongly about not having any disruption of the summer and the spring, if we can help it. So our thought is fall 2026 gives us time to raise the money, get our ducks in a row, and then have the fall and spring if needed to finish up. That's our thinking. Because we don't want to mess with the best. Very spring, for sure.
Short but beautiful summer. So I think we'll leave it at that. I want we'll switch out the computers here.
I know I'm here, so. No. You guys do have help to do that.
I'm not one of signature. There it goes, perfect. I don't think I have one of these things.
Point if you manually click.
I'm sorry,
The pointer is manually click.
and that went where? The pointer. Did the pointer leave?
Is it under the computer? It's on top of the projector. Projector.
Oh, on top. Thank you. Thank you. I am Ellen Tillapot, and as the friends have mentioned, the village did secure a grant. We applied in 2023 for a grant to improve the vista and access at Lakefront Park. And this wasn't a concocted idea. It came out of our 2015-16 comp plan. It was followed up in our 2018 park survey, but it was not well received, shall we say. So we do, fortunately, we reached right back out to New York State because we have been awarded a little over $200,000. So they told us, you still have it, but you need to come up with a project. And I said, well, this sounds like Cindy and I had this conversation with the New York State Parks. And this seemed like an ideal situation to work with a project that had already begun and move our funds there. I was surprised, I will just tell you this, that they let us because it's a little capricious. I was parks chair for, I think, 6 years. And I applied for funding for Ferry Spring, and by a prior administration was told, don't bother. Don't bother applying for that park. We're only interested in access, greater access to Otsego Lake, and that's not giving it to us. So when they said that we could consider moving our grant funds to support a potential project there, and there's a lot that we love to do at Ferry Spring, we're quite excited. This, in that one image that was shown earlier, they sort of showed the old road coming in. I actually remember when the road came in that side of the building on the Route 31 side. So to me, it just seems wonderful to move the road back there. It won't be exactly in this location, but you can see the early pavilion down there on the left. This is one of the village's earliest parks. Our very first was in the late 1800s was 3 Mile Point. But then we, with one gift from Robin Sterling Clark, we received most of Lakefront Park and this property. And it's essentially, it was 2 lots. It's a little over 5 acres on the west side of Route 31. And then almost 27 acres of what was known as the Bowers Lot, just north of here. That's largely undeveloped, and one of the goals would always be to kind of make some walking trails, make that some more interesting. It's really not used. It has been, I believe timber has been cut there at one point, but that was about it. Let's see, so is this? Oh, it's not gonna work that way, because this isn't hooked up. So this, as Susie pointed out, this is in 1937. This is a photo from the Fenimore Archives. And it was quite open. This park opened in 1937. But as much as we'd like to think those signs were a much later addition, the winter of 1937-38, they put those boards on because they were using this a lot, not just for summertime recreation, but wintertime. And they warm themselves with that huge fireplace in there, et cetera. So those are part of, they've been there, let's see, how many years, 70+ years or so. So yes, I think there's potential for changes, but they are pretty original to the park. And this is what we see that the village could really facilitate. This, as Susie pointed out, is our caretakers' quarters or residence. The section on the left by that little open doorway, am I blocking anybody? Sorry. There is the women's changing room, and on the right is the men's changing room, and then there's basically a residence for the caretaker. And if you, oops, it went too far, there, this is what the current configuration of the caretaker's building looks like. So, the 3 women's changing rooms on the left, 2 for the men, they don't need as much room, I guess, and.
There were originally 3.
There was, and then, right, so this caretaker's quarters for all the years, certainly since I've been on the board, that shower has been put in. There was no indoor shower like that, so he walks in where it says WH is it's actually a kind of big round water heater. And then there is a shower stall. You'll notice the caretaker has no bathroom facility. He goes to that cute little house in the woods when he needs to. So, or she needs to. So this is how we think we can work well with our funds to greatly improve this park. It's essentially not changing what you would see as the facade. But on the left, we've now opened up with a doorway, a section where there's a shower, a toilet, and a sink for the caretaker. On what would be the lake side, there's an ADA restroom that is accessed via a ramp. You'll notice that the water heater got moved to kind of a closet there that would be accessed from the caretaker's bedroom. On the other side, we have larger 2 changing rooms that could be used by anyone. So this is sort of what the exterior would look like. You have a little ramp coming up to the ADA restroom. And the beauty of this is there was one shown, as you saw in Susie's drawings of the pavilion having one, but that pavilion isn't always open and unlocked. This would be totally available for anyone accessing the park when it's open. It could also be used by someone who didn't want to walk as far down. It's not like it's only ADA solely. One of the Friends pictures showed the parking, and on the lower left here, you have a little bit, I can't really shift that up too much, can I? There. Sort of the red circled area is, think of that as the caretaker's building, the pavilion is on the right. So essentially one of those we just shipped over so there could be an ADA space next to that ADA bathroom. And a rendering. So it really doesn't alter per se what's there, it just makes the space much more functional and usable and probably perhaps potentially easier, I don't know, to get a caretaker. We'll see. The other building, which Susie has been pointing out, is our pavilion. And they show designs, and I'll show you those in a second. We think it's important, as long as we're doing an ADA bathroom and improving the facilities in the caretaker's quarters, to also do it, take that off the Friends' hands. It's an important aspect of that pavilion, but this is an ideal time if we're focused on that. Because some people don't realize that's village water going to Ferry Spring, but it's not village septic. It's a septic field. So we have to look at that, you know, we're gonna be essentially adding, if you think about it, 3 toilets. To the existing, and we have to make sure everything works and is in compliance. So we would be looking at this end of the building. And this is the image that was shown earlier of the pavilion. It's essentially taking what was once. That was a kitchen area in that building at one time before that was all taken out. And essentially, this is the ADA bathroom that we would still put in. Even this could happen, you know, before, or after, at any point, because once you're kind of in that building, you would be able to access this. It still leaves quite a bit of space for other utilities, et cetera. This grant that was given by New York State, we actually got points, and I'll note that I think we applied like 4 or 5 times for a parks grant, and we were never successful, so we worked on finding what do they want, and they really wanted, you know, someplace for viewing, access to the lake and fishing. So we are looking, and this is all kind of preliminary. At this point, what we need to do is put together a new scope of work for the state with some estimates, with plans. And then they would have to approve this change of work for us, this scope of the project. So it does seem like we know this is a much better park actually for fishing. You can catch fish off that existing kind of boat dock, but to make something that would be usable by all fishing people as well as kayakers who carry their kayaks down that road. And this is, you know, this is all just very preliminary. We're looking at more of a floating style dock. It's a lot easier for our crew not to have to be building these structures, but we could have a platform at the end. All of this would be kind of worked out. Nothing is final here now, but this is the concept we're sort of working with. Because we need to have that fishing component to stay in this. And I've gone back here, this was, I know this was a much earlier version, I took it from one of your earlier presentations, but our feeling is we might have enough funds to facilitate particularly the Ferry View concept of the project. Obviously, the first thing that would have to happen in any of this would be the lane. Because until you move the lane, you can't build the view, so that does seem like a great way to more utilize that wonderful 1937 building that is there. I think that was, yep, that's all I had on that. Are there any questions, I guess, for any of us?
Yeah, just with the docks, so the floating dock, is that in addition to or superseding the kind of dock that we have now that's like the
The swimming dock,
swimming dock?
the swimming dock is staying as is.
Right, yeah, a lot of with, yeah, well, they have one at Evergreen Glass, there are these ADA kayak accessible, ADA accessible kayak launching areas. I don't know whether there's room for it in the new dock, floating dock system, or whether it has to be.
You know, I kind of looked at some of those in the plans, that would be great, the problem
How do
is
you
you are
get there?
never going to make Ferry Spring fully ADA compliant, it's just, we're a glacial lake, you've got a steep bank there.
Got it.
I give all the credit in the world to the people who keep their kayaks there and take them down that slope. It's not easy in any way. Yeah, even for us going back up. But we certainly have looked at some of that.
Yeah. I just, yeah,
And would like to consider it, but again, it's not helping people get down that steep slope.
got it.
Is there anything else?
Well, we have a couple. Oh, go ahead. Eric.
Yeah, I was concerned about the deck and its filled. I hate that someone said we could see the lake better if we thinned out some of the trees. You know, I mean, that's not why people go there for the vista, really.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't know how you can prevent someone doing that or suggesting it.
Yeah.
I think it's a very nice way it is.
There, you know, we have a parks board, the village, there's Friends of the Parks. I think we would not look to do a lot of clearing at all. The village is actually, people don't realize they invested quite a bit of money in very spring trees lately because unfortunately we have a hemlock woolly adelgid infestation. And we did contract with a Catskill Tree Alliance, and they are certified by New York State, DEC, et cetera. And they have done some spraying up by the road. It's really right off the road, kind of almost coming across from the cemetery. And so that's not cheap, and we've been doing that. We did it for 3 years. At this point, the Alliance has said, let's just see, that should sort of take care of it. It's a very slow process. It's like a 6-year cycle to try and eliminate them, but the spraying is effective for a period of time. And I don't know if you've ever looked at the east side of the lake, that is 90% hemlock, and we want to preserve that as much as possible. We do know we do need to cut some trees, trim some trees, they're bunched together and not healthy, the crowns, we've had tree experts in looking at it. So if we did anything, it probably wouldn't be right in front, but it would be in that area where we've already had to combat that HWA. I'm sorry, you had.
Yes, could you fire up the computer again? I've got a couple of questions I want about the drawings that you.
Okay, which is there?
The first one is the caretakers. There's 2 slides there that are of interest.
Back to the
Right, so the
caretaker.
one that gave a floor plan,
Of
right there.
proposed,
So, I'm looking on the right where it's designated as an office. And one of the things that strikes me about the caretaker's cottage is that it doesn't read very well for the public arriving. Where am I supposed to go? Whom am I supposed to check in with unless somebody's sitting out there at the table and catching people? It seemed, I was just, as I looked at that, you certainly don't want the caretaker to have to bring anybody into the office. But if that window in the front, or there can somehow be an identification of this is our office window, or if, so you see on the right there, it's,
Yeah.
it's.
I will
don't know how you
say-
want to do it, but this is, the thought is to make this something that the public knows to go to without having to go inside, but then it won't inconvenience the caretaker on not so nice days. To maybe have the window that opens out and from the office, and we can deal with the patrons that way.
we certainly can think about that. For those who use the park, they know that our caretaker often sits out there, because that's how you kind of monitor who's coming in, so they are already in front of this facility. We don't want them in that building per se during the day. They should be there kind of supervising the park, et cetera. So a little umbrella thing is what they would often sit under there in front of the building.
Right, and all I'm saying is to optimize the presence of the building as someone who knows where to go and then can be served without invading the privacy of the caretaker's cabin. I think it would be a benefit. It was on the slide that showed the landscaping, that had the drawing of the dock. It's the, not,
The
yeah,
dock,
that one. Can you describe those features? What are the two circles? I can't quite read.
picnic areas.
Okay, and they're existing.
It says existing picnic area. Yep.
I think I have two questions. One is how much will the parking space, which is already limited, be compromised by it? Because that is always a challenge and figuring out how to get us down there. And two, is there still going to be space for the lifeguards to go when it's like the weather's not great, but they've got is there still gonna be a lifeguard room where they can stand in the pavilion? Is there a plan for that?
You mean the lifeguard room?
Yeah, is that still gonna exist?
You know, that is something we certainly need to think about, and whether it's a corner of the pavilion or some other space, yeah.
Well, it would be a nice spot to sit.
Yeah.
When we initially put the bathroom in that space, the rest of the space would still be available. And for the lifeguards, it just wouldn't be quite as large.
Yeah.
For us, but I think it's just similar. Yeah, so where it says utility closet, that could still be the guard room. It would just be a little smaller, but I think the front of the parks could also spruce it up a little bit as part of this. I think the whole thing could use a little. We take the lifeguards.
But that upper parking lot's not gonna be smaller or it won't be less, no. Yeah.
The upper parking lot, sort of south of the park, no, would not change. And everyone forgets, we have two parking lots up on the road as well.
It's just not.
Yeah, we talked about better signage for that, to encourage people.
People don't know.
We know.
Yeah.
And also like a path from that upper parking lot that goes by the sign that we could leave that a little.
That would be
So you don't have to risk putting ivy, harder to get there.
It's a great idea.
I think that would be easy. But yeah, we may have to use our able bodies more.
It's good.
Get down.
Any other questions?
Comments?
It's
exciting.
It's
exciting.
exciting.
Yeah.
Super exciting. Yeah, this is happening.
I'm curious what the village is thinking timing wise for this.
So we've already delayed, they wanted a revised scope a little quicker. I should point out, this was a grant we applied for in the CFA in July 2023. We were notified in December of 23 that we had received the grant. So now we went all the way through 24 and, you know, we were heading to signing a contract. Where now we still don't have a contract because we've now changed the scope. So we're going to submit a scope. There are many factors, when you do a park, we need to make sure that they have copies of certified deeds, et cetera, because whenever you accept New York State funds, this certainly has occurred 3 times already in Lakefront Park, it's occurred in some of our other parks. There hasn't been one here, but there'll be a deed covenant that this, because they're using public funds to, and the park is a public park, and that is recorded on the deed. So there's a lot of sort of paperwork that has to be done. Best case scenario at this point, I see we might get a contract by next December or January. And so we would be looking at potentially fall of 2026 before we could begin anything similar.
I just wanted to comment, just reiterate too, like, this is such a great, exciting proposal to see that. Friends and village, everybody else is behind it, especially at the time after COVID, that people didn't socially interact, especially our younger people. This is another thing to say, come out and socialize a bit more and connect with our neighbors. It's a nice opportunity to see that happening again and give them a reason to come out. It's another angle to look at besides enjoying a beautiful view. Lets us connect with our neighbors and know who we are. And I think that's very things so.
It's got wonderful picnic areas in it.
Great picnic areas, great fun.
Just to piggyback on that comment. My family goes back generations all the way to the Aprils, and that spot where my mother grew up, every Sunday, that's why they had, I forgot they had a kitchen, but they did pop-up dinners every Sunday, everybody in town. I mean, that's what they did back then, but we
Do it
need,
once a year.
we do it now on Main Street, Church House, but, we need more of that, like, in our communities, to be able to do that. And it's, you know, like, I have to be honest, I haven't been up there, but like, my kids were younger, I went to 3 Mile. But, and then I'm retired now, so I need to get up there more.
I was just gonna add, I also, know that, a longtime Berry Spring user and fan, Dora Lee Sittler, passed away recently. And she, actually, she said she used, or it said that she used Berry Spring until she couldn't. And then she asked, for people to remember her with donations to Berry Spring. So it's kind of hard to think of her. And yeah, 100 something. Wow, yeah, that's one back there.
Any other? Yes, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, I was just wondering, there's a, moving at Cindy, and there's a new grant opportunity that opened today, so Cindy knows about it for municipal parks and. Correct. Is the village gonna be applying for other parks, because there's, I feel like the 2019 action plan was great, but it was 6 years ago. And it was before COVID, and, you know, we all had like our strategic plans done before COVID too. Things changed, and so, is there gonna be another effort to do sort of a comprehensive look at the parks? Here's where we've come, what we've done in the action plan, what may have been missing from that action plan. Because, I mean, the survey was good, but it only gave us preordained options to choose from, and none of them dealt with non-authorized access to the water, like boating. And so I think that's something that's missing, and it would be great to focus on that going forward, whether it's at early spring, I think. The topographically, it's just not gonna happen for me anyway.
No, that's a great idea. You know, we were pulling up some of those earlier, plans and, comprehensive plans. And it was fascinating how many, you know, some of them were completed. We did that, So we can pat ourselves on the back, but totally, get more feedback and do something like that again.
Can I?
This is Audrey, chairs are.
I'm new to the board, started in August, but I'm very happy to be here, and I love the Parks Committee, and the parks are great, so I'm happy to be participating in it. And I wanted to let you know that we are working on drafting a new survey to send out to people. And we, of course, will include, we have some things we might include on there, but then also have open sections for you to suggest things for each of the parks. So the committee, the Parks Board Committee is working on it, and hopefully we'll get it out soon, but we've got to work on the draft.
Oh, that's fabulous. Okay.
Yeah, I have something I'd like to share with everyone. I've long been concerned about the walkway in front of the buffer strip, or by the buffer strip of Lakefront Park, and just a week and a half ago, one of my neighbors slipped and fell and hit his head on the walkway because it had skin marks on it that was not noticeable. And in my view, in any season, as there's any moisture at all that collects on that, it's a treacherous site to be on, and yet we're inviting people to use that as their way to go back and forth on the lakefront. So I strongly recommend the Friends consider as a project at some point, and I certainly am asking our own board to do that, we've got to make some safety improvements down on that waterfront, or someone's going to not, is gonna get serious with her. I've slipped on it, happened not to fall, but
I've slipped on, yeah, in the fall and in the summer. It's the trek sport, it's so slippery.
so. Please keep that in mind. I mean, we're trying to make everything accessible to as many people as possible, and then an innocent person walks along and cracks his head on a flat surface. Why that?
Ideally would be, I mean, I would love to see us, it's like I was reimagining of that lakefront park for access that would be. ADA compliant, wheelchair compliant. And also having like a put in for kayaks, et cetera.
These are great thoughts for this survey that's coming up. Be great for the action.
Yeah.
Is there anything else? If not, we appreciate everyone coming out. We really appreciate it.